And let's bring in Dave Rubin, host of the Rubin Report. Dave, I mean, it's one thing to have a rally where you're in support of somebody. These pro-Palestinian rallies are happening all across the country, but so many of them are permeated with anti-Semitism. And as we saw in California, a Jewish man died in an altercation in one of these protests.
Yeah, let me be clear, John. I speak for myself, not for Fox. Rashida Tlaib is a Hamas supporter, and when she says river to the sea, she means the elimination of Israel, which would be about 8 million Jews, a second Holocaust, and you'd have to kill about 2 million Arab Muslims who live in Israel, and Bedouins and Baha'i and Christians and others. But that would be just fine for her. It would be just fine for many of these people protesting. You know, they're also calling for the end of the occupation, which they claim began in 1948. Well, that means they want to bring the British Empire back. I suppose we could go back 250 years and bring back the Ottoman Empire, because there never was a state of Palestine, as anyone who knows history knows. Look, this is the rabid genocidal movement of our time. It is just true. It's hard to say, but it is just true. There is nothing Israel can do other than lay over and die that would satiate either the Hamas caucus right here, AOC, Tlaib, Cori Bush, et cetera, or those people out on the streets. There was no occupation of Gaza the day before all of this on October 6th. Not one Jew lived there. Not one Israeli lived there. Hitler would have loved the place. Every year or so, they would lob rockets over, and Israel would have to respond to those rockets. They went in. They killed 15,000 people. The barbaric, medieval, horrific torture that they did. They still have 200 people. They have 12 Americans at least. Why is nobody in America calling for unconditional release of American hostages if you don't at least care about the Israelis? Look, the enemy is in our borders. We all know it. And until we all level up and figure out how we are going to fight this properly, it is just going to get worse and worse. We have video. It's the White House. They have video of who desecrated the White House and put the paint on the walls. Why haven't they done anything about that? New York City, where I used to live, when they're going after cop cars and painting Free Gaza all over the cop cars, do they not have video of those people? We have facial recognition software and everything else. We have every tool we need to deal with all of this, but do we have the political will? That's really what this is all about.
Yeah, vandalism is really getting a pass these days, it would seem. There also, at a lot of these rallies, are a lot of people who conflate the Palestinians and Hamas. At a protest in London, people were openly supporting Hamas, calling them freedom fighters. And then one organization did some interviews with people there, and there didn't seem to be a whole lot of knowledge about what Hamas is really all about. Listen to this soundbite here.
When Hamas invaded Israel on the 7th of October, what was your initial reaction to that?
I don't believe they did today, Hamas. I think so. Honestly, I think I need to be a bit more clued up on everything that's going on.
I'm at the rally, but I don't know what the heck is going on, and I need to get clued up on it. What does that tell you?
Well, it tells you that these rallies are a very strange conflation of a couple things. I think you have the true radicals and the Islamists and the people that are more in line cognitively, let's say, with Rashida Tlaib. Then you have just sort of the intersectional leftists that are basically the remnants of BLM, and of course BLM, which was a complete fraudulent organization that never sent a black kid to college or opened a black business or anything like that. They've just ripped the mask off, literally and figuratively, and they've become a pro-Hamas organization. So a lot of these college kids, notice there aren't families out there. There aren't middle-aged, generally speaking, middle-aged, well-dressed people who seem like functional members of societies. It's young, single people who have their brains mashed by TikTok and by modern academia, and they have no idea. They have no idea what they're talking about. If you don't think the Jews have a little something to do with Israel, might you, if you don't care about reading history, how about learn the story of Hanukkah? Do you know where Jesus was from? It was called Judea back then. We call it the West Bank now. So unless you think Jesus has nothing to do with the Holy Land, you should be at one of these rallies.
You know, I don't imagine that many of the people who are at these rallies have seen the video footage that Israel put together and has been presenting to the media in special screenings. It's the unedited video that was taken mostly by Hamas from the October 7th
John, they simply wouldn't
attacks.
care.
Yeah, well, I don't know, but maybe they would.
John,
because
they simply wouldn't care.
Listen to this description from Sabrina Maddow, who is a reporter for the National Post who watched this. She said, I watched Hamas hack innocents to death. The worst part was their glee. Screen footage showed literal streams of blood, hacked off arms and legs, and an infant missing part of its skull, brain leaking out. I'll never forget the gore, but it's the look of euphoria and pride in the terrorists' eyes, cheering for the cameras as if they were the ones partying in a music festival that day that will haunt me. How can a normally functioning human being not look at that and say, what an ungodly act of terror, and why would you support the people behind it?
John, at least in the 1930s, the Nazis who filmed a lot of their atrocities had the temerity to hide it, right? They were filming it for their own records, but they were trying to hide it from the rest of the world because had the rest of the world known, at least a little more quickly than ultimately they found out, they might have done some things to stop it. Hamas's reason, their cause for existence, is to try to kill as many people as possible, not only Israeli, though, but also Palestinian, because, as we know, they obviously use Palestinians as human shields, and they shoot from kindergartens and from mosques and from UN facilities and everywhere else. So they want utter mayhem and destruction. There is nothing the Israelis can do other than die that would make these people happy. But the history of the Jews, yes, a lot of people get killed in the history of the Jews, but the Jews are still here, and that's what Hamas ultimately will find out at the end of this thing, unfortunately. But I would say to the average American that's watching this and maybe doesn't care about the Middle East or doesn't particularly care one way or another about Jews, which is just fine, and everything else, if you think that these people who are marching in Times Square and in D.C. and in Brussels and Paris and everywhere else, London, etc., if you think they will be done, they will magically be done with their quest once they eliminate the Jews, no, that will be the beginning of the quest, because the real quest is to take out America. It is to take out every Western civilization. If they can disconnect the Jews from the ancient land of Israel, what do you think they're going to think about America and our 250-year-old history? You don't have to ask me, and you don't have to ask you. Just listen to them about what they think of this country. So we better wisen up, and wisen up quickly.
Dave Rubin, good to get your thoughts, troubling though they might be. Appreciate it. Thank you.